Hey there, it's Jenny from Southern Savers. It's Monday night and it is our weekly Q&A. This is your chance to ask any questions that you have, saving money, couponing, whatever you want. And I always come with a topic. So this week, our topic is meal planning and freezer cooking because it's one that I get a lot of questions on. It's one that even after we do this as a Q&A topic, 2 weeks later, someone's going to send me a message and say, hey, could we do that again? Or could you cover this topic because they missed tonight? So it's always one that is good to just recover and make sure that we're all on the same page or that we've shared all our tips, because there's a lot to meal planning that I think some people don't even try to touch. And then there's a lot that you could do that's really not that hard. It's not I have to sit down and we have to have this mapped out for the next, 9 months what we're going to eat. You could make this as simple or as huge as you want, but anything that you put in to meal planning or freezer prepping or freezer cooking is going to save you money and going to save you time. Just whatever effort you put into that. So that's what I want to hit on tonight is some big things, but some small things that you could also do. So to dive into that, if you have questions that are not on topic, that's fine. Whatever questions you have, leave them in the comments and I will see them or my husband will see them, and between the two of us, I will try to answer them. So I am completely cool with off topic. So if you've got a question about some crazy CVS deal or whatever it might be, feel free to ask. Do not feel like you are going to derail us. I'm okay with it. But I am going to go through for a little bit on topic. I had written out notes and my husband got me all set up and it appears that he left them all on my desk. We'll try to go through what my plan was. But we will stay on topic. He's running to try to see if he can go find them now. They're on a little tiny slip of paper. But we're going to go through meal planning first and then freezer cooking and try to give you some tips on both of those. So to dive in meal planning wise, thank you. I had tried to be helpful and even left it right on the computer form. Notes. First off, how do we even get started with meal planning? For some of you who have never done it before, or you feel like this is something you can't do, because I'll confess for years, I've been running Southern Savers now. Somebody asked me yesterday, almost 12 years. Southern Savers is almost 12 years old. And when I first started the site, and really probably for the first 6 years of this site, I did not meal plan. We were not a meal planning family because I would make a list of what we wanted to eat and I would write it down. And this is my little meal planning book that some of you guys have seen. And if I wrote it down, this is, 5 or 6 years ago, we might get through 2 days of it and then we would be totally off plan. And so I got tired of that. I was like, I'm meal planning, but we never follow the meal plan. So I'm not going to do this anymore. And that was kind of the way that we went. We didn't meal plan. We didn't really have a focus for things, but I'll confess there are so many nights that I would just stand in front of food, be like, I don't know what we're eating. What do you people want to eat? And it adds stress. So sitting down and creating a meal plan takes away some stress, but it really helps your budget 100%. So probably 4 or 5 years ago, we switched our tune, started to meal plan a little bit, and now it's very much I have things mapped out. This is what we're going to do. And it takes so much stress off of everybody just to not have to ponder what is on the menu. Do we have everything to make that, et cetera, et cetera. So to give you some ideas of what this can look like for you, to get started, the first thing for me is that you need to look at what's on sale. So you need to grab your weekly ad. You need to look at the list on Southern Savers, however you're going to do that. If you have no stockpile, you're going to plan your meals based on what is on sale. Now, if you have a stockpile, if you could go in my pantry right behind me, I can plan my meals based on my pantry. I do not have to follow the sales. Nothing in this is going to be required for our meals this week. So it depends on what you have on hand. If you have no stockpile, to save money, you must follow the sales. So this is the upcoming buy low ad, as you see, Happy St. Patrick's Day. A number of you with no stockpile, you better be planning on some corned beef and cabbage this coming week because it's on sale everywhere. You get the idea. If it's May the 5th, I hope that you're okay with Mexican this week because that is all that's going to be in that weekly ad. That's why we should have a stockpile. So you can have a little variety. But you get the idea. We want to start with what's on sale. Once we get our stockpile built, which is a whole nother Q&A and a whole nother topic, then we can just plan off of the pantry. We can plan off of meals that we love, things like that. But we want to start off of what's on sale, then off of what we have on hand, because that's going to save money too. I don't want to start planning some shrimp night if A, I don't have any shrimp, and B, shrimp's not on sale, and shrimp is not on the meal plan. You get the idea. Those are like step 1 and step 2. Then let's get the calendar out and let's see, what do we have going on? I tend to meal plan 1 week at a time. I have a very sweet friend who meal plans her entire month out, and that is still a little stressful for me. 1 week at a time is very doable for us, and I tend to do that on Sunday afternoons. Sit down. I'm already on Sunday kind of assessing what does this week hold for us. It's usually a conversation my husband and I have in the car on the way home from church. Okay, what do we have going on this week? So we've already kind of gone down both of our schedules, but that's the next one, is getting out the calendar and seeing. Because if you've got a meeting and somebody's got sports, this is not the night to sit down and plan a meal that's going to take an hour to get on the table. It's a night to plan a meal that's coming from the freezer or that's going to be in the crock pot all day long. So you got to look at your calendar so that you know that you can stick with what you are planning, that this is really going to work. And then we can start to sit down and actually look at meals. So we actually have 3 whole steps before we even think about what we're going to eat to try to make this work. Because if you don't do those first few steps, 3 days in, it's not going to work. You're going to forget that you have all this going on. You're going to eat out. We're going to grab McDonald's. You get the idea. Just those first 3 things. What do we have on hand? What's on sale? And what's on the calendar? Then let's sit down and let's focus on what are we going to eat. Now, some ideas there, and I want to jump into questions as well. Some ideas for us on how we decide what to eat. And I've kind of seen a whole bunch come through from various folks sharing. You could make this as simple as a crazy jar, and I meant to pull ours, so give me 2 seconds. It's right here next to us. This is not a jar of meal plans, but this is our dinner jar of questions, but it's kind of the same concept. So you could literally have a jar of meals that you just reach in and you pull out a meal and you make your menu plan. By the way, to prove to you that this is not meals, what are the 3 most favorite products that you own? So this is, if you come to our house and you have a meal with us, these are our dinner questions. But you get the idea. You can stick your meals in a jar. You can stick your meals on popsicle sticks. I've seen people do that one too, where you pull out a popsicle stick and you decide what's for dinner. It's very luck of the draw, but hopefully what you put in the jar, you have on hand, you have in your pantry. But that is one very easy way to take any thought out of the process. One of my favorite ways, and I've shared this website with you guys before, is Supercook. So, and I'll pull it up and I'll show you as well. So Supercook, you plug in what you have on hand. They've got all the columns over here. Let's see, I'll try to, I'm always blocking the way. I'll try to make myself little. There we go. So we've got all the columns of what you have in your pantry over here, and you just start plugging it in, telling them, and the easiest one, guys, is always to go off of meat. Don't sit there and plug in your spices. You will be here all night if you try to plug in everything in your pantry. But show me what I can make with chicken breast and sausage and bacon, and it's going to sit there and weed through whatever recipes it has based on what you tell it that you have. So if I've gone through a few things and I'm going to give it some, I'm going to say I have onions and potatoes and carrots and garlic. I'm just clicking the first few things on the list. Currently we've got 71 that I can make based on things that I have. It's asking me what other things I might have to narrow down the meals. But if you're looking for something new, something that you don't normally eat, but you don't want to have to sit there and go through cookbooks or weed out what you don't have the things for, This is a fun, easy way to do it because it's doing it for you. The database is just going through all the recipes, and a lot of these, they're just kind of skimming off the web. So this is from All Recipes. I know you guys can't read, if you're on your phone, you can't read the tiny things, but it's just the huge recipe sites that Google is already going to send you to. They have basically skimmed them to get an idea of what the ingredients are and then put them into a database. So you're just using their database. Now, there is, I want to say, a portion of Supercook where you can like create a profile and it saves it all for you, and you probably have to pay for it. I do not use that side, but it is great for just quickly finding ideas. It doesn't even mean you follow this recipe, but it's ideas of what to cook. The other thing that I would recommend for our family anyway, we do not try to plug in, but maybe one new recipe a week, and sometimes not even that. If you've got, I saw one question of ideas for picky toddlers. If you've got small children, this isn't the time in life to be throwing in new recipes all the time. That's not how they work. They are very like what they like, and we can teach them to like new and exciting things when they get older, but you're going to fight them to like the same vegetable for the next 5 years. Whether you feed it to them every night or not, they're still not going to like it. It doesn't matter. So I would stick with what you know you're at least worth fighting for, but what you know they're willing to eat some of. In our house, whatever is on the menu is what you're eating. I do not cook multiple meals for people. I do not try to appease everybody. We have one kid who, if it's all thrown together, if it's a pot pie, one of a favorite around here is called burrito casserole. She won't touch it. We're still going to eat it. It is still a favorite. So we may not eat it as often as we used to eat it before we learned that she hated it, but it is still going to be on the menu from time to time. My husband's sending me a note. Our other thing too, if you've got kids who are super picky, red sauce and white sauce, also known as ketchup and ranch dressing, are magical. And they will get a lot of vegetables down that they originally did not want to touch. So, if you do what you got to do. And if ketchup magically makes them eat something, ketchup, the idea of that just makes me sick. But if ranch dressing makes them, just let them have it. And that's going to make things work a lot easier on everybody. Okay, I have a few questions here. So Sherry, Stacy, and Deborah, both of you guys are asking specifically, I need help planning for a friend. Sherry says, because she's a diabetic. Deborah says, I have no clue how to meal plan. I am a diabetic. So in that situation, what you're going to need to do, and to speak specifically to you, Deborah, and then Sherry kind of can take it and phase off. But so Deborah, you're going to be in a tricky boat, because to meal plan as a diabetic, and this is putting on my registered nurse hat for a second, you shouldn't actually put your meals on a calendar and have them set in stone. Because depending on what you ate for lunch, depending on what you ate for breakfast, your dinner may actually need to have less carbs than you had planned, or less fruit than you had planned if you've already had a number of carbs earlier in the day. And you hopefully know that. This is just part of maintaining life for you. So what I would recommend is that you meal plan, and for a lot of people, even if you aren't diabetic, this may work better for you. Instead of having a meal plan where let me find one that's not in pencil, because pencil is harder to see on the screen. Here we go. Instead of having a meal plan where we have each day mapped out and what's going to be on that night's dinner, make a list. Meal plan, just a list. So here are 6 things this week that I plan to eat for dinner. I'm not assigning them Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They're just 6 things that I plan to eat for dinner that I know that I have everything to make on hand, but I'm not assigning them a day. And that right there is going to help a lot for you, because you're going to have some flexibility based on how you're feeling, what your blood sugars are looking like, and what you've eaten earlier in the day. And then from there, I would step back and realize that you can, because you're diabetic doesn't take away every single meal in the world. You can very easily meal plan and probably should to eat healthier. So let's focus on meals that aren't high pasta. If anything, almost to a keto standpoint with some carbs. You don't need to be zero carb. That is actually not a good plan for you. But you can focus on meals that are not heavy carbs and heavy sugar, and getting those into your routine. And you may already have some favorites. So for all of us that don't have dietary restrictions, we all have routine meals that we love. And that is what's going to make meal planning even easier. What I would recommend, if none of you, let's take it from a standpoint that none of us have ever meal planned before. Before you sit down and try to map out a week or a month or wherever you think you're going to go, make a list. What are our favorite meals? Just make a list. Ask your kids, ask your husband, give me your top 3 favorite meals. And if everybody did that, they're going to be different. You're going to have quite a list. If I were to sit down and do that for our family, I have a long time ago, there's probably about 15 things that are our routine meals. That's almost 3 weeks worth of meals because you're probably not planning every single night. We always have a leftover night. I know everybody's got something like that thrown in. So 15 meals, it gets you through a chunk. Then you think about once a week, maybe adding in something new. Now we're up to like 3.5 weeks. This is getting a lot easier once you think about what those routine meals are that everybody loves. So even being a diabetic, you still have those. And thinking about what those are. So there are some key things, and we could have a whole health night there, but some key things that you want to avoid in your meals. But once you've got your avoiding items down, you should be good to meal plan out on other ideas too. So to give you guys some ideas on that, I'm going to stick some links in to recent meal plans that we've shared. I shared in February and in March a monthly meal plan that's actually printable and has links to every single recipe. So if you want, they're not all mine. They're just random recipes around the web. But that's a great starting point. I'm not expecting you to print it and follow that meal plan by heart. Not everybody's going to eat everything on the calendar. But it's a great way to get an idea of where you could go here and maybe find some new recipes. But look at those and use those to see what they look like as well. So I'll stick those in the comments so that you can see them as we go through. And Jenny Belamonte, to try to kind of hit yours too. So meal plan ideas for picky toddlers. Again, to stick with things that you already know that they like. Also, I will confess, when our kids were much younger, so I have a 3-year-old now. She's about to be 4. But at one point in our life, we had 3 kids who were under 3. It was a hairy time. We did not eat what they ate. They ate much earlier, and they had a much more simple fare. It was, here's your vegetable, here's your meat. Eat your dinner at your little tiny table. And after they went to bed, we ate dinner. And that was actually probably the best thing that we ever did for our marriage, because I didn't have to fight them over what they were eating, and we kind of got our own happy time in life. Now, as folks are older, we all eat together all the time. And yes, our 3-year-old has to eat what we eat. She's actually the least picky of the whole bunch. But I will confess that we did do that when they were much younger. So it may be bad advice for some, but if you've got a lot of smaller children, I would totally do it again. And it worked for us in that moment. Okay, so I'm getting a lot of questions along on the freezer cooking side of things too. So let me finish up on meal planning really quick. A few other things. You've got once you've sat down and you've listed out what your favorites are or your routines are, I would also throw in some that are just easy. If in our house, every Monday night, I love you guys, but every Monday night is a little stressful because I have a meeting right before this. We're always at American Heritage Girls, and we come flying in. Tonight I was technically 2 minutes late pushing the live button. This is we're going to eat soup. We're going to eat chili. It's going to be in a crock pot. That is how Monday night works. Lately, I've tried really hard. My big girls fix sandwiches and we eat a picnic dinner basically in the car on the way home. It's whatever works for you. But those nights, figuring out how you're going to make your meal plan work around what's going on is going to save a lot of money, because that's saving us our picnic dinner in the car from hitting McDonald's that's really, McDonald's is the only place we would pass between town and home. I don't want McDonald's every Monday night, nor do I want to have to pay for McDonald's every Monday night. But it does take planning ahead so that we have everything to make those sandwiches and to grab whatever we need to have our little picnic dinner in the car. It works though. You just have to plan ahead. So one other thing in terms of meal planning, as you're sitting down and you're looking, so that monthly calendar, for example, that I mentioned and that we stuck in the links. When you're sitting down and you're thinking, if you're going to think further out or maybe even later in the same week, I encourage you to think about follow-up meals. So an example for us, if we eat steak on Saturday night and we're grilling out steak, we might cook an extra, because come Sunday night, my husband and I always have Chinese, and one of our favorites is stir-fried cabbage. I shared that recipe actually about a week and a half ago on the site. So stir-fried cabbage, and it's great with leftover steak. So if you can do that, if I can say, hey, on Wednesday night, we're going to have grilled chicken, and we're going to intentionally put 2 more chicken breasts on the grill because you're already there and you're already cooking them. Then maybe we take that leftover grilled chicken breast. It does not have to be the next night, but I can take that and I can cut it up and we can have chicken pot pie in 2 more nights. But the meat was cooked because you thought ahead on what was on your meal plan, and you kind of, I call them follow-up meals, to where you took whatever that key ingredient was and you went ahead and planned to plug it in to an entirely different meal. Sometimes you've got to be really intentional here because people might steal it for their lunches. So just to warn you, warn them, like, hey, this is not a lunch. We are cooking this extra chicken so that you will have dinner in 2 nights. Do not touch it. But hopefully everyone will be on the same page and you can save it and have it for another meal and save yourself some time. So it's a big one, follow-up meals, as you kind of plan out or you think about it. So if you're just getting started meal planning before I switch to freezer cooking, the big one here, I would not start for a full month. If you were going to sit down for the very first time and you're going to map out meals, go 1 week at a time. Now, I keep showing you this little book. You do not need to be all cute with a little meal planning book. This is from Erin Condren. Folks always ask. And it does have the option for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. As you guys, I've shared numerous times, I do not map out breakfast. Breakfast around here is the same few things. You can, and it's fend for yourself, but it's cereal, it's bagels, and it's eggs and bacon for us if we're trying to be really good with keto, which I still need to jump back on that bandwagon since coming home. Lunch is occasionally planned. We always have a Sunday roast. If we've got something going on, it gets planned. But lunch is usually leftovers around here. And then dinner is always planned. So dinner is the one that I'm focusing on, but for 1 week. So I don't take it a whole month at a time. Life is too stressful. Life has too much going on for me to even attempt to know what's going to happen in 2 weeks from now. And it just doesn't work for us. So you got to do what works for you. But if you're just getting started, really small, 1 week, and maybe not even assigning days, just to kind of get into the habit of it. And then you can get bigger if you want to. So to switch sides and talk about freezer cooking, though, before I do that, actually, I've got 2 questions that are off-topic questions. So let me get to your questions first. So Paige asks, when is the next 3-day weekend? We need to get a new mattress. So Paige, there were some huge mattress deals at Macy's. They were supposed to have ended yesterday, but I would pull it up and see if Macy's possibly extended them. They had some mattresses that were like 68% off for Serta, for Beauty Rest, for Sealy, good brand mattresses. If the sale is over, then really it's Memorial Day. We don't really see mattresses and furniture on sale at Easter. You may, but Memorial Day is the really, really big one. So that's the one that if there's anything that you've been holding out for, Memorial Day weekend's a good time to grab it. Appliances, mattresses, all of those big ticket items. And then the other question, to kind of try to find it again. Great question. I think someone already answered you, but just to hit it to you, do you have to have a red card in order to use Target Cartwheel? No, you do not. Target Red Card is just a way to pay in Target, and it does give you an additional 5% off, which totally adds up. But Cartwheel you can use through the Target app, and check out through the Target app, or you can actually just print your Cartwheel barcode straight from their website and use it right there off of your printout in the store. So if you don't want to have the Target app, you don't even have to have that. But you don't have to have, you don't have to go anywhere else. And Rhonda is saying on the YouTube side that taking the jar for folks that, and looking for diabetic meal ideas too, that the jar may be a good idea for you. You have a list of recipes that you know work for your diet, you know are going to be compliant, and you just pull from the jar. And I can see that. You're taking away the cookbook, that it can be very enticing, filled with things that are not on your diet or the magazine or the website. You're just putting in the jar what you know you can handle, and then you're just pulling it out and going to make your meal plan from the jar. So, you know, it's whatever you find that is working for you. Okay, let's talk freezer planning and freezer prepping. Or freezer meal planning, I guess is really I left a word out there. In terms of freezer cooking and freezer prepping, they're two very different things, but one of them is going to work a lot easier for some people than others. So freezer cooking is where we're going to sit down and make a meal, and it is going to be in the freezer, ready to go. You just need to pull it out and put it in the oven. And Trisha's actually asking, what temperature does food have to be before you stick it in the freezer? I've always heard that it has to be room temperature. So Trisha, I think it depends on who you ask here. The goal for your food is that it not fully bring down the temperature of your the temperature of your freezer. So if I'm going to put something in the freezer that is blazing hot and I'm putting it into my tiny fridge freezer, it does have the potential to bring up, I guess, the entire temperature of the freezer while it tries to cool down the food. But what you could do is wait for it to cool just a tiny bit, put it in the fridge, and then move it to the freezer if that's your concern. For us, most of our freezer meals are going straight from being prepped to our chest freezer, which is much colder than your inside fridge freezer, and putting it into a deep freezer. It's going to be fine to go in, not at room temperature, to be still warm. But do keep in mind, most freezer cooking meals you don't bake. So if I'm going to freezer cook a lasagna, I compile the whole lasagna, but I put it straight in the freezer. I don't bake it first and then put it in the freezer. It's perfect. We actually did that before we went to Scotland. We left our kids with a lot of meals. I love my mom, but she doesn't really like to cook or cook. So I'm leaving you with 5 kids who are going to want to eat. So I went ahead and left her with some meals. Well, lasagna is a perfect one. Especially go with the noodles that don't even need to be pre-cooked. All you got to do is put some spaghetti sauce and cheese together and put your noodles in there and shove it in the freezer. Chicken pot pie. You're going to cook your insides. Your chicken is going to be cooked and your goop that's all around your chicken. But your crust, you don't need to pre-cook. We're just going to put it all in the freezer, and it's really going to already be pretty cool at going in. It's not going to be blazing hot because it didn't come out of the oven. Now, there are some meals that you could partially bake and then put in the freezer, but they're still going to come out frozen and have to be fully reheated to that main temperature. So if you do partially bake them, you actually could run into an issue of overcooking them because I still have to raise their internal temperature to a point that is hot enough to kill bacteria. They need to all reach easy 140, but really 160 as their middle internal temperature. Now, I'm not Alton Brown, and if we watch some cooking shows, they'll probably tell you certain meats need to be certain temperatures. From a nursing perspective, 160 is your happy number. And it's a good number for a lot of your food to reach. And to hit that number, it's still going to take a pot pie 45 minutes in the oven from thawed. So we're still going to end up having to bake it to a full amount, not to a partial amount, just to kind of keep that in mind. And then also on the temperature side, if you do decide to keep it on the counter and then put it in the fridge, you always want to stay away from your danger zone for food. I don't want food to really be in the lower than 140 degree range for very long. So once food gets to be lukewarm, that's not a good place for food to be. And we don't want it to be growing things. So that's one of the joys of just prepping it. We're not pre-cooking it. We're not putting it in the oven. We're just getting it all compiled, and then we're going to throw it in the freezer. So it makes it a little easier for you. You don't need to wait, really, is probably the long answer on that, or the short answer for the long one that I gave you. Okay, so to talk about in terms of freezing and containers, I love disposable pans. That makes life easy. They're buy one, get one all the time. Grabbing those when they're buy one, get one. But a really fun tip, if you've not done this, take your your normal glass casserole dish, your pie pan, whatever it is, and take heavy aluminum foil. Put 2 to 3 layers of heavy aluminum foil in your casserole dish, and then make your casserole, whatever it is. Now, this won't necessarily work for a super, super goopy casserole, but if you're making a pot pie, if you're, whatever it might be, it's going to work fine. So line it with 2 to 3 layers of aluminum foil on the bottom. Freeze your casserole, and then you can actually pop it out of the dish, and you've just made your own aluminum pan. It's going to be perfectly fine in the freezer like that. It's wrapped in aluminum foil, basically, all on the bottom. You're doing 2 to 3 layers just in case it gets bumped so that it has a less tendency to get a hole ripped in it from the bottom. When I go to cook it, I want to put it back in the pan. Not a good idea to just cook it straight on the aluminum foil. But now I can have my dish back. I don't need to fill my freezer with glass dishes and all my Pyrex is stuck out in the freezer because I didn't have disposable pans. So just a fun, frugal way. If you're out of disposable pans or you didn't grab any, just use some heavy-duty aluminum foil and make your own. Super easy. Just remember to put it back in the dish before you bake, or you'll be really frustrated when you have a massive mess all over your oven. So in terms of storing items for meal prepping and freezer cooking, I would go here and just get some of the big Ziploc containers. They're on sale in the new Publix ad coming up on Wednesday. We see them on sale regularly. The pack for $3 is usually where we are. And then we've got coupons. So you'll get a pack of 3 to 4 of them for $2.50 after coupons. It's not bad. This was a 2-pack. But these are big size bowls, and it's going to hold soup. That's enough soup that would feed our whole crew one whole meal. Or we can do everything we need to do beef stroganoff in here. So I'm going to stick 2 links in the comments for some freezer cooking meals that we love. One of them is an older link that actually has a video where we put together meals. This was before my 4th kid was born, but it might have been my 5th. It's been a while. But we put together a whole bunch of meals and did a video on all of those meals. But this is the go-to. These do not work. Ziploc bags do not work. Containers do not work past 2 months in the freezer. So if you are thinking that you want to stick some freezer meals in the freezer for 6 months from now, this isn't really the way to go. And freezer meals, I wouldn't really push them past 3 months. I think if you did try, if you had them wrapped in aluminum foil, they're still going to be a little off after 3 months. So just keep that in mind as you put things away too. Generally for us, when we put things in the freezer, we're going to end up eating it within the month. So a lot of times for me, freezer cooking is not the post that I am going to stick in the comments of, making 40 meals all in one day. It's usually like our lasagna example. When I put that lasagna in the freezer, we made 2 that day. One for the girls to eat the next week with grandma, but we actually made a second one to give to some folks at church. So that is our norm. If I'm cooking a big meal, that I go ahead and double the recipe and we stick one in the freezer for later or for someone else, and we eat one tonight. So a lot of times freezer cooking for us is on the go when we're cooking tonight's dinner. It's not that I took a whole Saturday and I didn't do anything else but freezer cook. I don't have time for that. I would love to have time for that, but I don't. It's more that on a regular basis, when we cook something that is easy to freeze, like a pot pie, shepherd's pie, beef stroganoff, lasagna, those are our go-tos. Chicken poppy seed casserole. I'm trying to think of what else is out in the freezer. Chili, those things, they all get doubled, and then one gets frozen and one gets eaten on that night. So you can kind of take some of that stress out too. Don't try to overdo it and make this some event that we're, making invitations to, basically. It's just an on the go. This is just how we're going to cook. You're already making your kitchen messy. You're already cooking this meal. So it's really easy to just double it and make a second one. It's really simple at that point. Okay. To hit one question, Diana says, is there anything that you really shouldn't freeze? So Diana, the things that I would recommend not freezing are things that you do not want the consistency to change on. So cottage cheese, cream cheese, when those come out, you're going to be able to bake with them, but that's it. You wouldn't ever want to sit down and eat it. Cheese is another one. My whole crew had chili tonight, and I'll have it when we're done. And so this is still out from dinner. Cheese can be frozen if you get a really great deal on cheese and you want to stick it in the freezer. But it is not going to come out in the consistency where you would want to take this and just put it on as a topping on something. Not going to be pretty. You can bake with it. It's going to be great for baking. But that's the only thing that I would say you shouldn't freeze. Now, there are other people that say you shouldn't freeze potatoes. You shouldn't freeze. I've never had issues with things that we've frozen. One of our favorite recipes, actually, that is in the freezer cooking recipes link with the video, and I'll just share the screen just so you kind of know what I'm talking about. It's in this post if you click through the links. So freezer cooking tips and recipes, where we went through and did the video. One of our favorite recipes was this, and I'll scroll down to just show you. Here we go, slow cooker corn and potato chowder. And this, you put the potatoes just diced in the freezer. You don't pre-boil them. You don't do anything. Just cut up the potatoes. You coat them in a little bit of flour and you put them in the freezer. And I got a lot of comments on this and some emails that are like, I don't think that's going to work. You know what? Just trust me, because it was delicious. And it came out, and we loved it so much. We served this to about 30 people who came over for dinner from the freezer. So, if you're worried about it, I'm serving it to strangers. It was perfectly fine. So I wouldn't be too worried about what you freeze. It's just consistency. That's the only part that you're going to want to have some understanding on, but everything else, go to it. Freeze it all. Whatever you want to try, I think you're going to find that it all works out in the end. Let's see. So one other thing on freezing, and then I'm going to take some off-topic questions and come back. If freezer cooking stresses you out, again, don't feel like it needs to take the whole morning. We do it one meal at a time just by making some extras. But we also, and this is more of what I do than anything, and I call it freezer prepping. In my inside freezer, not my outside freezer, but my inside freezer, I have Ziploc bags of pre-diced onions, pre-diced green peppers, pre-browned ground beef, already shredded chicken. And this is just a massive time saver. So if I'm going to sit down and brown ground beef, it's rare that I will just brown 1 pound of ground beef for tonight's meal. If I'm going to sit down and brown it, or stand up and brown it really, I am going to go ahead and thaw 2 or 3 pounds of ground beef, brown it all, you're already in the mode, and then freeze 2/3 of that. I would recommend, this last time somebody was being sweet and they put it up for mama and they put it up in a really huge bag. So lately I'm getting the bag out and I'm like whamming it against the counter. So break them up into smaller bags if you can. That's how I normally would have done it, but I will never complain at a 13-year-old who wants to help put away dinner. So that is always in the freezer. And when it comes down to dinner, oh, we want to make chili. I can have chili on the table in 15 minutes because it's opening some cans, it's opening some sauce and some seasoning, and the meat's already cooked. So think about it from that standpoint too. Not necessarily freezer cooking, but what are the common things that you're going for in recipes and having them ready. The other reason that we have the veggies in there though is if I buy, or I don't really buy, in our produce basket, every 2 weeks we get a produce basket from the co-op that we're a part of, and almost every 2 weeks that includes 3 pounds of onions. That's a lot of onions. To knock out a 3-pound bag every 2 weeks, I can't always do that. So we will go ahead and just chop one whole bag, and we'll live off of the other bag for the rest of the month as the recipe calls for onion slices, or you want to make hamburgers with onions, whatever. You have your fresh onions there. But the rest were diced and ready to go and are in the freezer in a Ziploc bag. They don't need to be blanched. They don't need, I don't need to do any other prep work. I cut them and they're in there. And the same with bell peppers. We'll go ahead and get those chopped up and ready to go. So one example of how this is blissful is if we do make your own pizza night, which on a normal routine becomes Friday night for us, that's half our toppings. I don't have to do anything. I just pull these bags out, put a few in a little bowl so I don't have a bunch of hands in my diced onions. But I don't need to cut up anything. Every single topping that folks would want is already cut and in Ziploc bags in the freezer. So, not even down to putting chili together, but just to kind of show you all of that. Let's see. Freezing ingredients that have already been cooked or however you'll use them is fantastic. So Erin says tacos in 5 minutes. Yeah, another one on that note, as you say, tacos in 5 minutes, is going ahead and freezing even pre-seasoned meat. So we have some chicken in the freezer that we just made a big batch of chicken enchiladas. And I decided instead of freezing a second batch of enchiladas, because sometimes I get some people who will complain about tortillas that have been frozen and then thawed, and then they feel like their tortillas are slimy, and trying to convince kids to eat slimy tortillas is not the highlight of my night. So I stopped making that one, and that is one of the lists on the menu. It's actually delicious. I have no complaints, but one of the recipes on that link that I just showed you is chicken enchiladas. I stopped putting the enchiladas together. Instead, I started just doubling the recipe for meat and just freezing the meat. So it's already seasoned. It's already chicken enchilada meat. Now I just need to thaw it and put them in tortillas and stick them in the oven. The whole putting them in tortillas things takes a minute and a half. You haven't added a ton to dinner prep when you just think about it that way. You've done all the hard work. So you really could, as you mentioned, tacos in 5 minutes, you really could put taco meat in the freezer, already seasoned. Now, our ground beef, just to clarify, does not go in the freezer seasoned. I do go ahead and pre-cook it with onion because that's the way my husband likes it. But if we're going to turn it into tacos or we're going to turn it into spaghetti, it can go either way. It isn't seasoned, but you could totally if that was something that you cooked all the time. And Jessica says, do I pre-cook and freeze chicken? Yes. So chicken for us, I will pre-cook and freeze shredded chicken all the time. I cheat here. This is not the way my mother-in-law would do it, who is an amazing cook, but I don't really have a ton of time when it comes down to this. A lot of times meals for us are how fast can I get things on the table. So for me, the fast way to handle this is actually to boil chicken, which I know there are probably major chefs out that cringe at that. But I just take chicken in hunks. I boil it until it is cooked, and then I stick it in the mixer. I don't know if you've ever tried that, but it's pretty amazing. So just take your chicken straight in the mixer, add a little bit of olive oil, and turn the mixer on, and it shreds the chicken beautifully, and then just shove it in a bag and freeze it. It's that simple. I don't pre-season that either, because some of that's going to get turned into enchiladas and some of it might get turned into chicken pot pie. You get the idea. So if I'm just going to do a big batch of chicken, it just goes in the freezer as shredded chicken. I am also not opposed at all to grabbing the Purdue shortcuts, the Tyson Grilled and Ready. If they're on sale and you've got a really great coupon on them, buy them. It is already pre-cooked chicken and it's in the freezer. So, the other night, my husband and I were making Chinese. I just brought in a bag, the Bird's Eye bag that they're going to be buy one, get one at Publix as well, starting Wednesday, of the stir fry mix of veggies. Bring in a bag of stir fry, bring out a bag of Tyson grilled and ready, throw them all in a pan together and add sauce. You have Chinese. We don't need to take this to a 5-star restaurant status. This is just a let's make dinner. It was delicious. Would I serve it to guests that came over? Yeah, I'm not opposed to showing you that life is real and that it can come from the freezer or it can come from a can. That's just life, and it all tastes fine in the end. But yes, totally. There's the only meat that I would not pre-cook if we were going to go there. I wouldn't pre-cook any fish. That would be a bad idea. So just go ahead and freeze your fish raw, fresh, however you grab it from the grocery store, and then cook it later. Do not put it back in the freezer. You can freeze your shrimp there because they sell it pre-cooked, but I wouldn't go past shrimp. You probably wouldn't like that. Robert says, I have a regular upper freezer refrigerator and hardly any space for meal prepping. Do you have a deep freeze or an upright? So Robert, I have a chest freezer, which is the stand-up upright freezer. We have had a chest freezer, which is the deep freeze, feel like you're going to get lost diving in. So we've done both. I have had an extra freezer though for over 10 years. And I can't imagine giving it up. I'm not going to tell you that you have to have a freezer, but it will save you money. Not only in being able to have space to be able to buy meat in bulk, which is huge for us and the amount of money that we can save on bulk meat, but also just being able to put some things away. If all you have is an inside freezer though, you can get creative with your storage. So one example, and I'm going to use my cheese bag here on that, is if all you have is an inside freezer, and maybe in your outside freezer too, that you are going to take everything, I'm going to squeeze out any excess air, and I'm going to freeze all items in the freezer flat. So I'm going to put my meat in, I'm going to put my soups in, whatever it is, leave a little section in your freezer that you could get a few things flat. Once they're frozen, stand them up and just line them up so that my soups and my meats are all lined up together. But I got to freeze them flat or it doesn't work. So you need a little bit of space in your freezer to be able to do that. Once they're flat, you could lay them down and stack them too, one on top of the other this way, but you're going to be able to get a lot more in your freezer by doing that. Another tip for some freezer organization, we had some folks out for lunch on Sunday and I was helping them organize their chest freezer, is if you have that deep freezer, chest freezer, which they're cheaper. So that is totally why we started. We only went to an upright freezer when we inherited one. But if you've got that deep freezer, chest freezer, use reusable shopping bags and have one that is beef and one that is chicken so that as you're digging through, I can just lift the bag and move the beef out of the way. And that way you're kind of giving yourself separate levels through the freezer, but much easier to get through because the reusable shopping bag is not as cold as the rest of the food. And once you start digging through cold food, you can only do that for so many minutes until you can't feel anything. But it'll be a huge help for you to go that route. And Deb says, is it okay to eat freezer burnt food? Totally. It's not going to hurt you. We've had chicken that has gone freezer burnt in the past. We vacuum seal everything. So I asked my husband to bring me some props and he actually brought me a vacuum sealer. So, we could go big today, but we vacuum seal everything. And for me, the general rule on that is that if it's going to be in your freezer longer than 6 weeks, it needs to be vacuum sealed, whatever that looks like for you. If it is going to be in your freezer less than 6 weeks, stick it in a Ziploc bag, a freezer Ziploc bag, but more than 6 weeks, you got to go here. If it comes out and it is freezer burnt on chicken breast, I'll usually just slice off the freezer burnt part only because it's going to be really chewy. There's not anything wrong with the meat. It could taste a little funny, but it isn't going to hurt you to eat it. It's just going to be kind of tough. So I'll try to kind of skim that little bit off of the chicken breast if it is freezer burnt. But normally if we have vacuum sealed, it's not a problem. Just a plug for your favorite vacuum sealer. But hopefully that helps. Okay, so some off-topic questions. Paige says, I need to buy new food storage containers. Mine have seen better days. Any suggestions on how to get quality ones at a good price? So food storage containers, Paige, we see huge deals on like the 40 count Rubbermaid container sets. We'll even see Sam's and Costco put them on sale, but you'll see really big sales on them. Kohl's, the next time Kohl's runs a 30% off and Kohl's Cash and all of that, which, by the way, is going to be the 21st and 22nd of March. Not that you heard it from me, but, you could go ahead and put that on your calendar. When they do that, we usually see those Rubbermaid 40 count sets as low as like 13 to 14 bucks. And that's the route that I would go if you're okay with plastic. If you're trying to go all glass and try to get away from plastic, then that's probably the same sale that you want to watch for, going Pyrex instead of Rubbermaid. But you aren't going to get them that cheap. So it's going to be a Pyrex, probably 7 to 10 count set, and that always includes the lids, in the $15 to $18 range, would be a really good price. So just so you kind of know what you're looking for. But never more, for Rubbermaid, never more than 15 bucks for a large set. And for Pyrex, for me, never more than like 18 bucks for a large set. Okay, 2 off topics that are Walgreens related. There's a detergent deal that said you could use Balance Rewards and earn Balance Rewards in the same transaction. How do you know when it's okay and when it's not? It's a great question, Diana. So let me actually pull up the Walgreens list because I think that that's going to be the easiest way to explain it. And the best way to look at this, so pull this up, Walgreens list, is there are 2 types of deals that are Balance Rewards. So one, and I'm going to go to the month-long list. So I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I've been trying, and the monthly deals, it didn't help that they switched while I was not in the country, and there are no Walgreens in Scotland. But I got this list up as soon as we got home last week. So month-long deals in Walgreens, there's way more that runs all month long than they actually put in the weekly ad. So 2 kinds of deals in Walgreens for Balance Rewards. One is like this guy, and I'm highlighting him and you guys can't see. So I'm going to go really big. Yeah, he always messes up the tabs when you go that big. So this guy, if I buy $15 worth of Dove, I'm going to get 3,000 Balance Rewards. I'm trying to get it to where you can see the whole deal. There we go. This kind of deal, if it's a dollar amount that's required, I cannot use Balance Rewards to pay for it because the Balance Rewards will reduce the amount that you've purchased and you'll end up not having purchased $15 worth and you won't earn the new reward. Now, the other kind of deal that you want to watch for, and this way you always know that you can, is when it's a quantity, not a value, but a quantity. So 5,000, when you buy 2 digestive health products, you're good. Use your Balance Rewards here. You are still going to be able to earn other Balance Rewards. So dollar amounts, no. Quantity amounts, it's almost like we're going every other one here. Yes. So an example right now that is a fun deal as well as we go to the monthly products is, let's see. Oh, where was it? Well, now I can't even remember. There are a few. Oh, it's Bic. It's right there in front of me. Bic razors. This guy. Just to go drugstore deals here for a second. These are free Bic razors. Free Bic razors. So you could actually buy 2 of them, use the coupons, get 3,000 Balance Rewards. I could turn around and keep doing that if I wanted to. Now, keep in mind, you can't use them and owe nothing. You only need them when you owe something, but this is a quantity amount. So I will always earn the Balance Rewards on the next purchase. It's the dollar amounts that I need to stay away from. So hopefully that helps make sense as to when you can and when you can't use them. And shows you some of the deals too at the same time. And then let's see, one other Walgreens question. Oh, and then Deborah says, Walgreens is rumored to be going back to letting you use more than 5,000 points at checkout. That would be very exciting if they did. I was curious if they would hold on to it for very long. For now, I haven't heard anything from corporate, but if they did, I think we should all go celebrate, because 5,000 isn't very much for sure. So Brady says, we have a deep freezer and we'd like to upgrade to a stand-up freezer. Is there a specific time of the year to purchase them at the best price? So Brady, this is always going to fall into that 3-day weekend category. Anytime that we're looking for appliances, 3-day weekend category. The other thing that I would watch, we do see freezers, and you probably don't want to wait this long, but it is a good Black Friday purchase. We do actually see chest freezers and stand-up freezers at a really good price on Black Friday. But I think Memorial Day is going to be fine. I would hold off. We're close enough to Memorial Day at this point. I know it's still 2.5 months away. But savings-wise, it's going to be pretty big. Also, guys, one thing to consider, if you don't want to wait all the way to Memorial Day, is taking full advantage of the pricing guarantee that Lowe's and Home Depot run. Out to the day if you wanted to. And I want to say that they're both 14, but they may be even out to 30, meaning that you buy it and then it goes cheaper within X amount of days. They have to give you the cheaper price. So if you don't want to wait till Memorial Day weekend, you could go a couple weeks early, and then if it goes on sale on Memorial Day weekend, you have it at a cheaper price. You could do that. So you don't have to wait all the way to the point, but you're definitely going to see cheaper prices by waiting for that 3-day weekend anytime on a large ticket item like that. Best stores in particular, Brady, is watching Home Depot, Lowe's, and Best Buy, and then price matching all three of them, because they will all honor each other's prices on appliances, and freezers count in. Also, watch Sears, and if you have a Sears outlet, I know a lot of Sears have shut down. There is a Sears outlet north of us in almost the Charlotte area. I know that's left. If someone's got a Sears outlet near you, they have really good prices on appliances too. We don't see a lot of scratch and dents on freezers, but you could watch for those as well at Lowe's and Home Depot, which is ones that have been returned because it got scratched when it was going in on install or someone changed their mind. But they're usually still brand new products, and they usually still have a full warranty and all of that with them, and you'll do really well with those. And then Irene says, if I found a Zaycon replacement company. So Irene, my Zaycon replacement company is going to the US Foods Chef Store. And I did a video on that and did it live a few months ago. But this US Foods Chef Store, if you've got a restaurant supply store near you, it's a huge savings on meat. So we got boneless, skinless chicken breast for it was some crazy sale, but like 59 cents a pound, something like that, a few months ago. I actually took my sister-in-law there last month, and she and I both did a big order together because we had a coupon, and we were trying to hit that level together without having to both spend a ton of money. But we get bacon, chicken, ground beef, all of that now from the US Foods Chef Store. And again, just Google restaurant supply store or Google wholesale meat near you, and you'll hopefully find something. There is a company called the Savory Butcher who is just coming out. They kind of are trying to replicate Zaycon, but to do it in a much more sustainable, much more don't go out of business way. And it's some of the former employees of Zaycon, not the owners, but the employees that are running it. They're not in all states yet. So that's one that you could keep an eye on too. I'm pretty sure that's the name of them, Savory Butcher. They are not in the Southeast yet though. So if you are anywhere from, this side of Texas, they're about to come into Texas. But if you're on this side of Texas or all the way up, and we just draw a little arch there across the Southeast, they aren't in our corner of the world. But they're coming. They are based out of the Idaho area, I'm pretty sure. So we got a little while till they get here. That was Savory Butcher. And you guys are talking about what's the beeping behind me. I'm sorry. We're making a loaf of bread. That's just, it's happiness around here. And in case you haven't had a bread machine in your house, they have them at the Salvation Army for like $6. My husband was craving one and went and got a bread machine for $6. I'm pretty sure we have previously taken bread machines to Goodwill and other places. So this one might have, been its third visit in our house, but my kids are loving fresh bread. Okay. Do I have a list of foods that are best to freeze? So I mean, anything could be frozen, but what I could say, and this is really in the back of the Southern Savers workbook, and I can try to find where we have that. I have to find the link to our online video. But the Southern Savers workbook has 2 pages in the back of how long things are good for based on where you put them. And it'll take me a minute to find the link to that. So if you give me a second, and I'll stick it in on the comments once I can find the page. Okay, so this page, I'm pretty sure will have that workbook in it. But if you go all the way to the back of the workbook, there are 2 pages, how long things are good for based on where you store them. And it's got a long guideline of what can go in the freezer and how long it would be good in the freezer before it's going to kind of lose flavor or lose quality, because nothing is really going to go bad in the freezer. It's that it's going to lose quality in the freezer. And that's when we don't really want to keep it around much longer. Let's see. And Rhonda, I love it. So Rhonda says she buys sandwich meat and cheese and divides them into single sub sizes and then freezes it so that she can just go to it. So that would be a great use of like parchment paper or something. You could even just kind of have it ready to go and separated and pull it out and have a sub. Let's see. Aaron says, left field, off past Granny's house, but I vaguely remember you talking about a Best Buy rewards program. So Best Buy, I want to say it's called My Best Buy Rewards, but it is on their homepage, and signing up for just their rewards program and creating a My Best Buy account. When you do that, the rewards, they're not magical, but they are going to get you access to, you get to shop early for Black Friday. Here we go. I was looking for it on their site. It's My Best Buy. So I'll stick that in the links for you, Aaron. But it's something. If you're going to buy a freezer, you should definitely sign up for the rewards and see what you can get back on that freezer for sure. Any CVS deals this week that are must do. Brady, I have to sit down and make my CVS list. There are a few that are definitely good this week. In the drugstores, I've got extra care bucks that expire this week because I didn't use them all and refresh them all last week. I'm trying to remember them all though, because my brain is already working on next week's ads. So let me just skim it really fast for you. Super cheap deodorant. We've got a lot of hair care deals and cosmetic deals again this week, but cosmetics are a normal. Eucerin lotion is really cheap. I'm trying to think. There is a good deal on diapers as well if you're in diaper mode. So we've got, I want to say it's Huggies this week that is part of this sale. So good stock up week for Huggies. Those are probably it though. Sorry. I almost missed the big one. Free Crest and Free Colgate toothpaste. So you get one of each, and you got everybody's favorite brand, whatever your brand is, Free Crest and Free Colgate. Those would be definitely the ones to not miss. Okay. And then Paige says, I'd like to put a dishwasher in my kitchen. I don't have one now, and I'm not 100% sure where to put it in the kitchen. Do you know of any way to save talking to an interior designer or someone to help me plan where to put everything in a kitchen and still save money figuring it all out? So Paige, what I would do first is see, because they offer it as part of their services, is to talk to Lowe's. You can always take it from I want to have a kitchen, and see if they'll come out. See what, you're not having to promise that you'll do anything or how much you'll grab, but I would start there because they're the most inexpensive and probably free. So Lowe's, for example, will come out a lot of times and give you estimates for things or ideas for things, and just tell them, I want an estimate for this. Their goal is to win your business to do the whole project, but you're going to get some ideas in the process for that. Another idea, and this is depending on what you have available to you, is to see if you've got a design school in your area and to reach out to them and say, hey, do you ever do student projects? I know that might sound scary, but they all need to learn somewhere. And so getting that, reaching out to them and seeing, is that an idea where they could come to you and they could do that. An example here from a nursing perspective and not a home design perspective is that a lot of folks don't even realize that reaching out to a nursing school can get you some resources if you have a homebound patient and you just want to have an assessment. Hey, I want to have their house assessed. I want to see, are there things that we could get that would help care for them? Now, it doesn't mean that the nursing student's going to be fully capable of everything, but this is actually part of their schooling. We had to do that. We had to do home assessments on patients, but we need patients to do that on. So there are all sorts of reasons that you should reach out to your local college or your local community college, and that could be a great one. If you've got some sort of interior design school in your college, you've got architecture in your college, home design, any of those types of degrees, even a CAD program, someone that's in a technical school trying to learn how to run the AutoCAD programs that do the blueprints and whatnot. Hey, I could really use someone to come out and give me an assessment. You could end up with some free assessments for that. So that's the route I would go if you could, and not pay anything. So do things last longer in the fridge based on where you put them in the fridge? For example, I guess you mean, does it last longer if I put it in the door of the fridge versus way back in the corner? Yes. So you've got to think about where the temperature in your refrigerator or your freezer is the most constant. So a great way to word that is actually to take it out of the fridge and put it in the freezer standpoint. And I think it was Robert that was saying, I only have above the fridge freezer and a normal little inside freezer. So a little fridge freezer does not get as cold or stay as constant cold as a deep freezer. And food that I put in an inside freezer will actually not last as long. It will be more prone to freezer burn, and it will just tend to lose quality faster than food that's put in a deep freezer. Another example is if you have a fridge that is an extra fridge. So we have an extra fridge. It's old, and it's just one that when we moved, we just decided we're going to move the old fridge with us. And it is my milk fridge. This is part of living in the country, and various other things that we buy in bulk so that we don't have to go back to town. But milk that ends up in there, it could be a week out of date and it will still be perfectly fine, because that refrigerator is opened maybe once every 3 days, every 4 days, and it's open for 1 minute. So temperature wise, it's staying much colder and at a constant temperature. And that milk then not being exposed to different temperatures, not being exposed to light, all of that as the light comes on, it lasts longer. So yes, it does matter, I guess, where you're putting things. Farther back in the fridge is always going to be colder versus right up next to the door. So think about the things that are in your door. And in our fridge, we're guilty of this. Our salad dressings, please don't come look at the date. I need to just throw them all away now that I think about it. But keeping food past their expiration date in the door of your fridge, really not a great idea, because it's not the most constant, the most stable section of the fridge. Okay, I think that we hit most everything. One other note that I had written down for freezer cooking, if you are going to go that route, even if you take our method of just doubling whatever you're cooking tonight and sticking one in the freezer for later, is that I highly recommend getting good, mailer labels or whatever it might be. You want to write on it before you put it on the food, because once that label gets cold, it's going to be really hard to write on it. It's not going to want to even leave a mark on your pen. And on your label, leaving really good instructions, not just what it is, but how to cook it, because you never know who's going to pull it out. You never know if it's grandma or if it's your husband or if you're going to end up giving it to a friend. So just automatically, we have some, they live on the counter, and I can write out what it is, when it was made, and then exactly thaw and then stick it in the oven, or stick it in the oven frozen. Some things are going to do fine that way. And then if you can't decide, if you're kind of making these up on the go and you've never done it, a good rule of thumb is 350 degrees for probably 45 minutes to an hour for most casseroles. 350 degrees is just a happy number. But if you want to Google another recipe and just see, hey, what this person say, you could. But going ahead and putting all of that on the label, it's going to make life a lot happier when that meal comes out of the freezer. And not having written on the aluminum foil, because we're all guilty of that one too, but just putting it right there on a big white label, you can't miss it. Let's see. So Kelly says, we don't have anything like a chef store around here. Everything is super high or only sells to stores in large amounts, as we are a retirement community area. Any suggestions? So Kelly, if you don't, what I would recommend is seeing if you could find a butcher who maybe is in another town. For example, even within an hour of us, there is a farm that sells beef, and you can buy a quarter of a cow, a half a cow. So maybe you look into that side of things. I'm not going to buy from a store. I'm actually going to go direct to the farm. If you don't know of any farms, contact a butcher, and the butcher can put you in touch with farms that sell directly to people. But I can buy that, and I'm going to pay a flat price per pound for that beef. This is the perfect time of the year to be researching it, because most cows go to market in the late spring. So we're talking May, early June. They want them to beef up after the winter, and then they're going to go to market. So this is it in terms of prepping. Start now. But price-wise, you could get beef. You're going to pay a flat price per pound, and as low as $4 a pound. And that's going to be steaks, roasts, ground beef. It's going to be way cheaper than you would get in the grocery store. Now, that is not for grass-fed, grass-finished. The more you want your beef to be, the more it's going to cost. But if you're just looking for a nice cow that's had a good life, that's a good going price. And you're going to save a ton of money that way too. So direct to farm is a good route to go if you can't find a store that will let you buy in bulk nearby. Speaking of that though, I did want to put in a plug. I am not a huge warehouse fan, but if you have a membership, because we've seen some crazy good Sam's memberships. I know we just posted one yesterday, I think, for another free Sam's membership. So we have the Sam's membership because we did the $45 deal. Sam's and Costco both sell, and I found this, and it made me very happy when I found it a few months ago. It's almost like a 2-pound freezer vacuum sealed package of rotisserie meat off the bone. So they cooked the chicken and then they deboned it and put it in a package. And price-wise, it's about $2 a pound. So it's more than fresh chicken for sure, but it's already been cooked and it's already been deboned. It's amazing. And that one little package, which vacuum sealed, it's a good size pack. We probably made 10 casseroles from one pack of meat. Like, it is way vacuum sealed in there. You'd be surprised. And when I say that, those were like chicken pot pies. They had other things in them, but it went way farther than I thought that meat was going to go. So I would check into that in terms of if you want to get a lot of freezer cooking done and you don't want to have to even deal with cooking the meat. That was a pretty fun find because it's just open the bag and start to make your recipes. I'm not going to say it's as cheap as if you made it yourself, but you know, if it's all about we're just trying to get some meals in the freezer and not make the kitchen a wreck and not spend all day doing it, that was a pretty fun find. So I did want to put a little shout out to one tiny thing that might make your life slightly easier before we jumped out. So hopefully this helps in everything that we've shared tonight. I put in a lot of links in the comments, and YouTube-wise, I'll try to go back in and put them all in below the video too, because I know they don't save later. If you've got follow-up questions too, please feel free to send me a Facebook message or an email. I don't mind at all. We can always try to cover the topic again later, or sometimes it gives me a chance to do just a call-out video on one particular thing if folks had a lot of questions on it. So please ask. It doesn't bother me. Hopefully this helps though, as you guys try to dive in and, get started, because if you're not meal planning, you should be. It's going to save you a lot of money on your grocery budget. Trying to handle, just having a grocery budget based on whatever you feel like cooking, it adds up really, really quickly. So, hopefully this gives you some inspiration to get started. Okay, I'm going to jump out though, and I'll try to, see one more question. I freeze pre-shredded cheese, or do I freeze pre-shredded cheese bags? How long if I do? So you can. We don't tend to, because honestly, these little guys, they last forever in the fridge. So an unopened bag of cheese, I don't know if this will even come across right, but I don't know if you can see that date, August of 2019. Guys, it's March. August 5th. So we're talking 5 months here in the fridge that this is going to be happy. It's a little weird, but you're good. So if you've got extra fridge space, which we do, you can keep this in the refrigerator. If you can't, it can totally go in the freezer. Just keep in mind, you're not going to want to ever do anything fresh with this. You're going to want to bake with it. It's baking and cooking only, because it has a funky texture. You wouldn't ever want to just take it out of the package and just eat it. Even your kids would kind of grimace at it. We freeze milk though. There's a lot that is perfectly fine to freeze that you may never have tried for sure. And Donna, I think you got answered. The Bic razors are free at Walgreens. That is where you want to head for completely free Bic razors, and it's actually through the end of the month, so you've got a little while to grab that one. Okay, I'm going to hop off. Thanks for joining me tonight. I will be back on with the CVS deals that we grab on Wednesday, and maybe our grocery deals. I'm not sure how much we're going to get in the grocery store this week, but definitely CVS deals. So I will talk with you guys later on in the week. If you've got questions, though, feel free to send me a message, and I hope this helped. Thanks again for joining me.